COOIDJAGH as Gael Harrish.
Shoh Claare na Gael as Bavaliam Shoh. My name is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert the Carslach.
Did the other hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
And I'm here to present this programme, which is called Claare na Gael. And in Claare na Gael you'll hear something of the English language, as Nishu Clash and Perdenach Nias Cheayn Gilg, and you'll hear something too of the Manx Gaelic, cheayn na MAIRE, the mother tongue of Ellan Vanning, the Isle of Man. As Banachtan and Jurish, we continue with the short story The Lawyer in Dorothy Manley's book of poetry and short stories, Fairies Ground, Homely Tales. Her schoolmaster narrator is a surprise inclusion in a Trespass Jury which has been sworn in by the coroner, along with 3 farmers. Tan Van Helsing Harrish Mina Harker devel Count Dracula gurish Chiga tan Ida Dania. Ach, de denken eide de gol gesød valje moe de goile kraag as de jenushen de vali ginzige de guljurid de wij olach rische cheer no, en chinje politikach and lie olju na ocean. This coming Tuesday, the 2nd of July at 7:30 in CAARJYN COOIDJAGH will be singing Manx Songs of the Sea, and they lead us off now over the sea. Harrish
Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish go hogger as by, Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish meshmanen, Emma ta Portland ben, Head and chat and ton and friend, for the vicar and lady, Harrish meshmanen. Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish go hogger as by, Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish meshmanen. Tafis vamlya as green, he of our red and ski, drown and ton and shell and she, and Harrish meshmanen. Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish go hogger as by, Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish meshmanen. Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish go hogger as by, Harrish ta bevan rai, Harrish meshmanen.
Originally written for a musical play performed by the Bunskol Ghilgach, that was CAARJYN COOIDJAGH and the song Harrish, and it might well be one of the Manx Songs of the Sea that they sing on Tuesday the 2nd of July at 7:30 in CAARJYN. Entry is free to that concert if you want to go along and enjoy the sound of CAARJYN COOIDJAGH. In Dorothy Manley's story The Lawyer, Benjamin Cregeen is an advocate with an office in Douglas, but he gets very little business from his home parish. That's because his brother, Jonah, is a dab hand at giving advice and helping to settle disputes, and even in drawing up documents for sales of land and other matters. It's not that Jonah is an advocate, in fact he's a cobbler, but he's got time to hear people's problems and he's able to come up with solutions. However, that changed when some sheep trampled the barley in a field belonging to Big Ned Farga, Balaspit. Big Ned had locked them up in a shed, and then the constable had come and taken them away to the sheepfold. Jonah has told Ned that it's not worth pursuing, so instead Ned has gone to brother Benjamin, the advocate. Ned says his fences were fine, so the sheep must have been let in through the gate. And then Ned refers to 7 sheep in all that were trespassing, ruining his barley. So the constable says, no, there were only 6 that he took to the pinfold, and the farmer, Charlie Willie, agrees, yes, they saw 6 sheep up there in the pinfold too. Wel Sionish as lior la Mina Harker, as na bhí scríw mich an fáglan an alw Van Helsing. The jarw te cúna leis there spenten den inchin. A fair ta uliw je prawl there cho ciat as ve ag a toiacht sur a sooner mach ega. Te an yinu shoh na lummergan, sledden na lummergan, vai ai vrish ons cheer jerudich. Creelian an nach odyssey jinu tret and sail smooth a smullion fajlet day. Eschen for die munge bes, morte ein for die bishige ons mijn je dochen en tamaru sledden pabelen. O, der au lid den de hit wai G, as gene wain jowl, krein niat nach odyssey we, se chan sail short ein. Ach, de shingen brierich, de ligge seren sail. Sein den tuljeelein we ons tastig, as na ebenein ulju follich. Sons een eish, salje tja, trenne wel denje krel eer shent het vagen, weg doet jeel na denje krine een jart smoegge. Weg egen ongeert, a fijn as een elie hegge, as na wappenen hegge, de strijchen en noidjen. Well, this is a modern song in the Cornish language. This is Phil Knight singing Je vamlya yw hi, which I think is of blame is she.
In meddwl o cherdia hi blw Han hwn o tre heddw Gens o Harrish the seddw A welis fi dwe chwythra glw Hi ddol a hegl son O gyda hi gyw Da gryneith a bos a gan A dan gywses fi Id min lam Gils fel o Harrish O hygl
Phil Knight with a song in Cornish, taking the high moral ground there and declaring de vamlya he, she's to blame. How chivalrous. Son te shingen en noijen adeltach de choron skau eer ninan minen heen. Son en sausjes je fair as de grai einori. Son fo as shiel njau, as son honor as glory. Lug calortus COOIDJAGH ve CAARJYN ton dew na bech ridder be rechit son shigeris the jinnach shin ulju cadla as na nichenain as cadla as na nichenain ons na smunjen as cor ber smunjen brunes kaart. Len a verach ag an Gael nimmage reche koers shige enjach demiach. Jenny mi shi is fei indesach noch. Te morde bech fenis liantenach enjach goitvorm. Foddy Haraukion corriger musmunjach, gedodde be jint. Son, choer mi shiljes a gles toerasel, Jane Gaure jurg me wesh, as va fissem, de rauw mi fos njauw glen. Gilen een early Seward, een huegula gerafauer, Jiri shin olju de morgen, as ta mi smunjen der en sabin muren son kages de cholju ergen. Mr. Cregeen, said Benjamin very formally, as if he and his brother Jonah had never set eyes on each other before. I understand you saw the sheep that are alleged to have trespassed on Mr. Fargus' barley field. Can you tell the jury how many sheep you saw? There was a moment's pause. Then, 6 sheep, said Jonah, staring straight over our heads. Did you see any identification marks at all? Ah, now, dang me, sighed Jonah, with fixed eye. And I didn't think to look. And I knew that Jonah was more interested in the affair than that, for I'd seen him up by the fold with his brother Fairy only the night before. The coroner turned to us. You all saw the sheep this afternoon, he said. Did you look out for any marks? Aye, said Charlie Willie. Isn't that what you asked us to do? Did you find anything then? We exchanged glances. Murray Stoll rubbed his boots on the carpet and stared out of the window, avoiding the coroner's eye. Music written by MAIRE, who we heard there playing on her fiddle, and then she was joined by SHANNON on accordion. And the accompaniment was by Steve Cooney on guitar and TREVOR Hutchinson on acoustic bass. Siodiw stasiwn yn asiwn radio fanning as yn sio tasiw geisdiach rys Claare na Gael. She Robert Cregeen Carnival mish Robert a Carslach mata.
Ever heard tell of our Bobby Bob?
To Claare na Gael maas na podcast and J Claare and radio vanning was regatten nasty in the dega radio vanning na truden reich the podcast jou. Wel she Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn na Alexa. De kleine Gael reclaasjen risjaagd en lukt jigel er skelia maag en gier shoh, is golgus in het egge radio vanning as broe krammen agert, as shirra en de MAIRE sen. Aye, said Charlie Willie, our spokesman at last. And what did you find? Pressed the coroner. They was all different, said Charlie Willie. There wasn't a clean enough mark on any, so we can't likely say whose sheep they were. And that was it. All Benjamin's clever probing and questioning couldn't produce the identity of the trespassing sheep. The jury was disbanded, and Benjamin went back to Douglas Town and back to the office with the fine brass plate. By jings, Jonah, said Big Ned, furious. There were 7 sheep on my barn. So one of us must have been mistook, said Jonah calmly. I tell you, best leave it alone. And with that, Big Ned had to be content. But I wasn't going to let it rest there. On the level now, Jonah, I said as we walked down the hill together, how many sheep were there in that barn? Jonah gave me a sideways look, as if he was sorting the men from the boys. 6 sheep, he said at last. 6 sheep and 1 meg lamb. Tre Henkshin and Gael son Angel morgen, vergindeles smoo CAARJYN on verferabij in jerkerish gennacht en rish. Sien de sachte moere, chwish rienet ons duches denia, lig de oor comreilach, skummert kreiton, ve erneskoch ons achterbij, eerljorish bes, as tashin rai back as bunai en toshi je tresh as soilje. Na smoo na ongeert, huis was je in saai megeerte woord, ren me goelien fasel ons jindes, na rauw uljen alleen van ons sja ach dremel. Grauw ach tre hurmi schilje je een gran jurg beis benas je hage, de rauw mi kurrit lesh rish gussen riechit. Te eer benas je Harker jeen de jerude worre rish tre en jaura, Genelleach nisjes rish, tre vis riddenach cor cunjach dans en eigniach rish, de wel smuljen a gran aglach shenek. Niemand chit COOIDJAGH se chema studeres liei oorwosh nish, as reiche koers de imiach. Well, we're going to combust now with Welsh singer MAIRE Gwilym, and she's putting some sugar on the fire, siwgwr i'r tân.
Mae'n taflid siwgr i'r tân, I demtio I ffawd, torri'n lan I gael y drwg o'r cnawd, troi a throi ddyn istrio'r briw, yn chwilio'n dyfal am rhywbeth sy'n driw. Mae'n deud y swnllid i'r dinas, I mi mae hi'n addas, cyfrwys di ffrindiau, brad sy'n I dyddiad, dad I cwilydd I ymegni o'r newydd, di syfu adnabod walia'r cydwybod. Lle mae'r llaw gan mae byd yn ychan isa, ti'n cael i'r unig gysi sy'n yn fama. Oes na le lle mae'r byd yn troi yn arfer. Cai dy geg cysur sy'n yn fama. Oes na le lle mae'r byd yn troi yn arfer. Cau dygyn, dyna'r ateb gorau sy'n Gamiau coc, stampiau smogs, a bagiau chips o siop. Cnonod yn y cig, gyda'r cylch i'm yn dod I stop. Dringodd yn i'r ystol, a ti'n llithro lawr y sleid. Gini hwn a bwasau, met a falian bar a llai. Talu siwgr i'r tan, dentio I ffawd. Pa mae'r byd ben ychan isa, yr unig gysur sy'n yn fama. Di caniau coc, stampiau smogs, a bagiau chips o siop. Cnonod yn y cig, ydy'r cylch i'm yn dod I stop. Dringodd yn i'r ystol, a ti'n llithro lawr y sleid. Gini hwn a bwasau, met a falian bar a llai. Talu siwgr i'r tan, I demptio I ffawd.
MAIRE Gwilym, we've been hearing more recently as a quarter of the Welsh group Pedair, but she's had a long solo career as well as co-presenting a garden television programme on Channel Pedwarec. MAIRE Gwilym I think she's from Ynys Môn. Chanel mi faganach undoliad girach, Tafissa trwy kiaull siar soon. Bi fémain Lord de Fáslich. Ach, na iai, stralia me ons acht foliach dag enjach, terwijl chinje banansje Harker, jint balu. Ta fissem, de welly jinu brunes son heen, as violju tam je een agen, fodem kortjeber go achtel as hoekjaartes day. A chanelli arltach, na chanelli ebel, de Lord mechionege. Tammy en Imre, shoh, de Van Helsing, as neashen as mish Lord Mechionege tretash in Lummergen. Tammy shielden de welly pert jane fishu nachimach shen ter chosnes jachons na kushlianek, goil toyach der avrige. Va oren liege gauntre hugge jean nut a Van Helsing chit mor baastje les fuil de toeder falle. Wel, fyddi de wel pisjoen viskuller schiele a hien nas ridden mai, ons eis tret a foliach benten den acht te tomenen ein genjeris dun weg. I stopped dead on the path. Murray Stoles, Meg Lamb, I cried, suddenly seeing the light. Follow anything in skirts, that, Meg, said Jonah. I suppose I should have turned back. Oh, this is not Jonah going on. I suppose I should have turned back up the hill right away and got the coroner to recall the jury, but I didn't. If Jonah had helped Mrs. Ned get that lamb out of the barn and nicked the ears of a few sheep to add confusion, he hadn't exactly lied to the jury, had he? Follow any lass, that, Meg, repeated Jonah as he walked on. Brought up on the bottle, you see, by Murray's sister, for she married and went to live over Borrowdale. And where one goes, she goes. After all, the others will follow. And where one sheep goes after all, the others will follow. It's a lonely life for Murray and him a bachelor and all. Fair good-looking sort of lad, too, and Mrs. Ned's as handsome as they come. Owl Ned never pays enough heed to her. I'd keep her bed warm if she was mine, I can tell you. Still and all, you'd think she'd have had enough sense to shut the gate after her, and she a country lass. Now, Scottish singer Robert Wilson gives us a musical picture of the hills of the Clyde.
The hills and the sea ever calling to me like a haunting old song ever setting me free. If a dream or a breath could be taking me there, I'd fly to the west like a bird of the air. It's a wish that I always shall treasure, that someday there in peace I may find, where my memory always can take me to the ever-glad hills of the Clyde. Be they decked in the snowfall of winter, or in deep purple robe like a king, but a gleam of my heels in the gloaming, and my heart like a songbird could sing, and if fortune may laugh and forsake me, yet I'll always be rich in my pride, for my memory always can take me back to home and the hills of the Clyde. For my memory always can take me back to home and the hills of the Clyde.
Robert Wilson, born in Cambuslang in 1907 but died in his 50s in 1964, in fact. He had a career with the D'Oyly Cart Opera Company as well as singing Scottish songs, and he was an early presenter of BBC's The White Heather Club. We trudged on in silence for a while, each busy with his own thoughts. "Reckon she's worth more'n £60 of any man's barley," said Jonah. "I reckon Owl Ned's come out of it better than he knows." And so ends the third of Dorothy Manley's stories, The Lawyer. As we heard, Fairy Cregeen was barely mentioned, but very briefly in that one, despite the overall title of the collection of Fairies Ground. And the title of the next story is The Preacher, or The Preacher, or How Time Passes. Oh, not so quickly here, I dare say, as Over the Water. Missed me cue there, but never mind, we'll come back to that. Yes, oh, how time passes, so not so quickly here, I dare say, as Over the Water, but time brings in its changes all the same, and not all of them there are for our good. Of the 6 big Cregeen brothers who lived next door when I was a lad, 4 had married and set themselves up. Joshua to the farming, Benjamin to the law, old Jonah as cobbler and local arbiter, and Isaiah on the plan, while Ezekiel had emigrated to Australia and Isaac had gone to sea. Fairy, the odd fella, the 7th child, lived on alone at the cottage after the old folks passed away. Unye is the fisse MAIRE, ma vis Michiel Gjaart benten de taasted benaisje Harker waag, eis de dolje daglachijn, gauw genistun, sen overroin. Foddy the gin an unvoer vis corori taasted, corori lord. Geljost au smuljen na saage. Son de gin en massa ons smuljen cor mi aris, de ben moezl. Hig Van Helsing as mechemer studeres beggen rosh na Firelia. Jim Coreber goil taich der goes net rish. Na san me, tre henken allus jaach aan, rentjen lord mechan na steed baan. Dat mi fagen der au riddenach zijn eignjege wel al grei. Ach, der au I gennach den oors on leeste mechan chit der goes. Lucht go beggan magitkin chit hús door they doltajamach. CAARJYN te riddenach de valley orts as arm slort mechon in lummerken, kaart tojach goed slew. Na san mi fuddy to be famine reine hús na vier Breton band Di Duel, who were here from COONEY back in the 1990s. There they played Danse Léon, dance music from the Bro Léon in the northwest of Brittany.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Station and Ashun today show and shed the grey radio vanning. As they get on, she Claare and Gael vis for clashin, MAIRE Robert Catin Cartwell, Robert a Carslach.
Have I heard tell of old Bobby Bob?
Esh, Rennie Square Vi. Maar so, Dorimi. Hi Tan venser Mina boch vinein, chlaare. Vamlya krauwlish furid, rai mechrooj, de redden maagd rauw, me haglen smedder, corrit maar so. Van Helsing lesh. Lesh Gael Jonah trimshach, cheayn lucy, signed on the shoh goil rauw, rosh me vis ridden gol rowd. Tan over nish ons riechid, smooth dolly na ve riw. As ten burra no shoh, cor dachur ve cheayn skanskira. Fodden fagen kummachen a toeder volle, tjitsjachs en edinnek. Ganelle nish, ach vier weg, ach te ragen, me vis suljen ein de goil taaste jay, gin ginu brunes rollau. Tan a fieglenek, beggen de spiri, as na keurten tan a suljenek, na skrai. Ganelle tjolju, tan taastedek nish, de mennik, nach hedden as veirischen in a lucy. Renish, Lord, eer tren rennie screw shen as we geary fistaway na san me. Our cottage had been empty for a number of years, and fairies sagged up against it, in much the same outward state of dereliction. The little garden that my dad had cared for with such pride was a waste of tumbled grass and briar, and the fences between the cottages had rotted or been used for firewood long ago. Sometimes when I passed on an evening walk, I'd catch sight of a yellow wallflower struggling bravely in the crumbling stonework, and I'd remember my dad, remember his gentle, patient tending of this scrap of God's earth, all wasted now. Fairy, I'm sorry to tell you, had become something of an embarrassment to his brothers, once they had wives to defer to. Mrs. Joss and Mrs. Jonah were forever grumbling about his appearance and the state of his cottage, and every now and again would swoop down on him and on it, and scour and scrub and lecture until they thought they had Fairy conforming to their ways. Love of My Heart. Graih Machree is a popular song in Manx, and this is a recording made by the Manx Girls Choir. Manach niauw Graih Machree merem, sign thou eschgedden bears for goosh. If I don't get the love of my heart with me, then I'll have to die without him. The Manx Girls Choir in jolly mood there. He always slipped back to his own ways, though, once their backs were turned. Mrs. Benjamin, very much the lawyer's wife and a cut above the rest in the land, simply ignored the fact of his existence. I guess Mrs. Isaiah would have liked to do the same, but with her husband on the plan, as we say over here, she was a bit circumscribed by the notion of Christian charity. She had to take some notice of Fairy, so she salved her conscience by giving him a hot meal in the kitchen once a month. But even if the brothers and their wives were more than a mite ashamed of him, I doubt if Fairy ever took much heed. When he was not off on his rambles around the 17 parishes, he'd be seen trotting happily into the cobbler's shop to exchange gossip with Jonah, or hanging round Charlie Willie's farm giving Joshua the benefit of his advice, or chasing up to town to see lawyer Cregeen, or following brother Isaiah on the plan. Nish, short an alem. Ma visse de wel ebeljek, ljorin cori fo hypnosis, inston nut en Count Fagan as clashen, ne welle earnes firni, de jinnach eschen, ter cori fo hypnosis hoyacht, as ter new en ear fuelek as corori de UJ shenegge, ma she en eignjege, eignjege he, de heilje gemacht deisen, shen as de vissaker. Ren me snoggle me gordeel. Haer, esh, shen signed on Junno de Chana shoh, signed on freely Guinness Jane Gereline, as me saw na voddy ginch de sen urine welvis. Spiendach a korm, och a piendach, de wel brisje me grie de smonjenair, ach, sign de wei mor sen. Tre Jew tashin chit COOIDJAGH, sign thou ginst ye son or nach jinmuds chit sign ye gin arach veig Jane Chorline, ach inrichen gol codel jorin. Renne glenne vesh uriva murein ulische vrishamach, eg smunjen Jane fien fuddy be ersen nanem bach hanna huisher na hortjige. The Cornish song we're about to hear is about the mallard, and the band The Rowan Tree is led here by the voice of Richard Trethewey, and he'll be here from Coooijdjagh in a few weeks' time.
An malata he said blue, he bluffed and how leven lana. Culliag tacker and wealth the G of Gilkin tacker and tacker of Culliag tacker ilbasti tra la 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 Culliag and tacker ithobi and tacker Nins hus Culliag aral tacker kaso Dusty ribbon lock all of the squalor If a fully can tacker and fully attack the wealth the G if fully can tacker and fully attack ill basti tra la 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 Fully can tacker if I'll be in tacker Nins hus kulya karal tacker kaso
And there we heard the Cornish band The Rowan Tree with the lead vocals there by Richard Trethewey, and he'll be coming, as I say, for Cooinjagh in a few weeks' time. And that was a song about the mallard, an Coileach Hoss. Va fissem, de berge sorgenjach de geurjach day, de beiden ginst day de raumi an yinu an unvriwnus. No ag a goed slew de jinnach goil soel a pian jay doet. Dinch me day. As van Irish jay, mar var me jurgelrish. It was this last little habit that drove Mrs. Isaiah wild with rage, following brother Isaiah, round on the plan. There she'd be of a Sunday evening, all got up in her best black, seated in the front pew, so proud to be the preacher's wife. And in would come Fairy. And we'll find out about what state he'd be in next time. Cartnish Shene. Between 7 and 9 you can enjoy some of the best chill-out music in the company of Chris Pearson, and then at 9 o'clock Judith Leigh will be here to present Sundown. We close Claare and Gael with slides and reels played by Irish band Dervish, who were very welcome visitors to COONEY a couple of years ago. Ach, ma mi grey, Shene Cartnish, and so until the next time then, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Oh, Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night eve. I'm a Crieriu, as Orselier, as MAIRE and shared you will you.